A species' resolution to the archetypes of power. Hello everyone, welcome to today's episode. I wanted to, before I really dive into this episode, share a poem by a Sufi mystic named Hafiz Shirazi. This man wrote a poem which is very important. And before I read this, I want you to keep in mind that we're living in a world where a lot of people are seeking power. So a lot of members of our species, they are seeking some sort of, everybody wants to improve, not realizing that a world filled with managers, there's nothing to manage them. So anyways, the Sufi mystic Hafiz says, from his poem that he wrote 700 years ago, known "Someone Should Start Laughing." Hafiz says, I have 1,000 brilliant lies for the question, how are you? I have 1,000 brilliant lies for the question, what is God? If you think that the truth can be known from words, if you think that the sun and the ocean can pass through that tiny opening called the mouth, oh, someone should start laughing. Someone should start wildly laughing now. This poem by Hafiz is an implication that we are creatures that look at the landscape and there comes a setting of wondering how we progress through it, and therefore problems arising and solutions meeting the problems of that design, you know? Now, what power means is different for every person. For me in my youth, I was very quiet. I was very shy and silent. My inner realms were locked in on their own, and my outer realms, I didn't even care enough to speak to my world. So then there was a sort of powerlessness in my youth, of feeling as if I was in the world, but I wasn't living it. I was just existing as a distant gaze, as some corner of the background. What we are unfamiliar with is our excitement, is it not? That means imagine something you consider the most exciting. Imagine you're someone who hasn't skydived, and so skydiving is so exciting for you. You've only been on the ground. You've never jumped into a sky. You don't know what that feels like. But imagine now you were a skydiver who has done it a lot of times. Imagine since the moment you were born, your father was a skydiver and you've been skydiving ever since. You know, it becomes something that's so familiar to you that you want to see the other side. And we're under the impression that human beings, they're raised in one way and they have to be in one way. You know, the world has to be in one way too, but the world moves in many ways. That is why we wake up to it in different ways. Every day, poetically, you can say, has its own enlightening peak. Something happens in the day that makes you realize you're not just something happening, you're happening as something. There's a story that there is this prince, this prince in line to be a king, the oldest prince. And this oldest prince, in his youth, he would play soccer with the, people in the kingdom back in the day. So like his friends, one of his early friends from his childhood, even though he's a prince, it has now become a palace guard. So in the mornings, this prince goes to talk to his friend, dressed in a casual man's clothing and whatnot. And so as he's going, right, somebody comes up to him, a beggar that doesn't even notice he's the prince. And the beggar says, please, please give me something like that. And the prince looks at the beggar and says, what does he say? He says, oh man, what was the word? The prince says to the beggar, I won't give you anything because you wouldn't know its value if I gave it to you. You know, it's as if the person asking for the prayer, but then when their prayer is answered, they don't notice it. You know? You know, there are some people who they notice life, they notice its absence, and that's how the fullness of it becomes divine. You know, there's moments where there's you can say communications that disturb the person. There's communications that dishonor the soul of man. You know, as much as there is men and women guiding each other, there's also men and women breaking each other. The most efficient tactic is to activate an archetype of power so powerful it doesn't need to be violent. We want to advance civilization so epic, so great, that it doesn't need to show its greatness. What is there to show? Because regardless of what we do, regardless of how we name, how we act, the way nature is being is there's a silence to it. There's a silence where it's as if there is nothing. There's nothing you can do when everything is being, really. So Charles says managers managing managers. Do the self-governing require a governor? I mean, technically the self is their governor, isn't it? Charles, so in this chat section, you say, do the self-governing require a governor? The self is the one governing. So when the self is moving, the world is like, all right, you take the wheel, I'm going to be in the passenger seat. When the world moves, the self goes in the passenger seat, and usually intense experiences in life where we don't have control over are a suggestion of this, that the world moved us before we could move ourselves. Anytime anything intense has happened in my life, it has been like that. It's as if like on some level, yes, call it karma, call it whatever, but on another level, it's the earth moving the free will of the human being. So anything that intrudes over your free will, it's as if you have free will, you will also notice its freedom. You see, there's a person who has never been free and they want to be free. It's like a dream for them, freedom. And there's someone who's been free and they are trying to, in some sense, they know what it's like. Hope is as if like your mind is already at the destination, but your body just needs to get there through commitment and hard work. Yeah. For me, the idea of leadership, it entered my mind at a young age, not as a sense that I was a leader, but just thinking about the role. You know, every person you can say complains about their nation in comparison to the past of the nation as if it is their lawn. You know, it's like it's isn't it fascinating? So many people take care of their lawn, but how much have they taken care of their species? You know, here's the thing. Anytime you feel people are happy, you don't see their suffering. There is no happiness in a changing system, but that also means there's no sorrow. It just means that things arise in phases. That means the weather is not the same every day, but it may appear so. I would like to read for you a poem by Rumi, by Hafiz, another poem. He says, the poem is called Tripping Over Joy. Tripping with a G, you know, not without a G. Tripping over joy. What is the difference between your experience of existence and that of a saint? The saint knows that the spiritual path is a sublime chess game with God, and that the beloved has just made such a fantastic move, that the saint is now continually tripping over joy and bursting out in laughter and saying, I surrender. Whereas, my dear, I am afraid you still think you have 1,000 serious moves. You know, Alan Watts, when he said when you have to see kind of work as play, that is wisdom. Because the point of something becoming work is that it requires more inner realm effort. But whenever you're playing, the inner realm is not creating the future. So technically, there's literally, your intelligence is putting less energy to the moment. So you have more energy. A non-dual person, actually, I feel, will live longer. Because if you think about duality as being processes, it's as if like the more the computer has more applications open on your phone, the more like you can say life becomes slow. That means if I want to do one thing, that's pretty fast. If I want to do two things, all right, it's a bit slower, but still I could do two things. If I want to do three things, it would be kind of either, it's definitely possible. If I want to do 12 things, like in one day, I want to do 12 separate things for 12 different projects, then it becomes something where, honestly, like how does a person feel when they go from, like, I don't know, their some room of a house to another room of a house? It's as if there is you, and then there is the universe. And right now, my existence to me arises as a room of my experience. It's as if experience is measuring itself based on how much of existence it has access to. This is why rationality is not enough, because irrationality is a suggestion that influences arise out of nowhere. You know, a person may say one thing, suddenly the other person thinks they know what the other person is talking about, and they stop the person even from talking, you know? Trust me, there's been moments in my life where I have been silenced before I could speak, and there's moments where I have spoken, or I've spoken before being asked to speak. The once that it happened like that. There was once where I said something, and literally the person was like, "Who's going to say that?" And I was like, "Yeah, you got to be quick." Every human being is fighting a battle we cannot see. That battle is semi with time and space, semi with the way they have interpreted time and space. Epictetus says we suffer not from the events in our life, but from the judgments we have about them. And emotional sensitivity is different. That means when I go to Iran, I mean, I haven't been there for years, but like, the country where I was born, when I go back there, there's different behaviors acceptable and different behaviors that are not acceptable. There's ways that you can live in Canada, wherein, for example, the country Iran, you cannot, you know? We cannot ignore the global communities developing. Globalization means a new type of human being is arising, a human being that is not, because of the expansion of perspective, no longer just a human being that is um, has access only to the dimension of their eyes. Like I saw on YouTube videos of Japan, how Japan looks like. I've never been to Japan, but I saw videos exactly how life is there. And for me, it's strange because seeing a video of someone else is like viewing someone else's memory. That means technically all these podcasts that are on the internet, it's as if people want to see each other's memories, you know? And I don't know, so much of this world doesn't have an instruction booklet. It's just unknown variables, known variables. You care for the known variables, you continue in the realm, in the known realm. You care only for unknown variables, you'll throw away your individual life and wonder why you were here and realize that non duality has no purpose, but your body is still here. That means people should know that back in the day, there wasn't an advanced civilization. There wasn't even an opportunity to build an advanced civilization. So obviously, the most metaphysical perspective was like, all right, it doesn't make sense. We're here. Let's get out. But now we have purpose. Our ancestors danced in unique ways, and technologies arose. Sometimes we have to like the moment into a better karma. And I'll tell you, all of it is about how much there was justice in your own inner realms when your hand moves in this life, when your body moves. That means how you feel before you move is perhaps even more important than you moving to feel something. We are a species in the making, and advanced. We're, technically, the way I see it is like advanced civilization coming to a planet near you. Right now, it's like the preview of an advanced civilization. Technically, our hopes and dreams for the future are like a trailer of how great civilization can be. There's a level to things that any problem has a design component. Like one side of the coin to any problem is just design. What's happening in the moment? Then another side of the quote is the emotion and the characterhood. So that quote from Epictetus, which I was saying, where he says, "We suffer not from the events in our lives, but the judgments we have about them." The judgment is your free will. The events that happen are not your free will. That means in mysticism, there's this strange view where because they feel there was something else before them, they don't know if the body is their responsibility. You can say the mystical practice does make reality so automated that you may feel there's no need to be existent here. That means here's the thing. The body, it just has to move to keep existing, but the mind has to engage. The mind has to engage with the dimension. And I feel that as we go towards the future, we're now reaching a point where we're tired. People are tired of history. They are tired of all the ways it can be weaved. That means it's like the person's like, what knowledge when there's this much unknown in the universe? What does our species know? What glory? So you see, the situation is way more complex. If we want to be in a playground, yes, love your way out until the end of time. But if you want to actually see what this world is, you see there are those who hide the eyes of love, and there are those who open it. Without honor, an advanced civilization cannot be built, and honor has to have a collective archetype identity. So right now, we have seen what it's like for individuals to be powerful. We have never witnessed what it's like, or even nations, individual nations to be powerful. We have never witnessed the power, the true power of a species. That means it's like there was an honor among thieves. And if you think about right now, that there's questionable people in power, all these questionable people in power need to do is get into a group and, in the honor among the powerful, just realize that this civilization is required. You know what it is? It's as if life is a giant parking lot and endless cars come in, they go do their shopping, and they leave. And so right now, as I'm alive, it's as if I've driven into the parking lot of life, and the car's there. I've stepped out of the car. I'm living for a bit. Then in 100 years or something, like I'm going to move out of this parking lot, and other cars come into the parking lot. So the value is increasing the quality of the tourists of the manifest realm. That means we gotta treat. We need travel agents to run the world that can ensure a high quality experience. This dimension, the more you allow your good karma to express in it, and you let negative karma to express in your inner realms. That means when there is something negative, first figure out where is it coming from. Is it coming from the outer realms or the inner realms? If it's coming from the inner realms, you can instantly get rid of it. Don't worry about it. Emotions, though, even if you're a person who gets super angry, all you gotta do is lie down on the ground. If you're an angry person and you can't control your anger, instantly lie down on the ground. Nobody can get too angry speaking when they're lying down on the ground. Like, there's something about gravity that's like calming you. That was my vision. If I ever see Esther Perel, like, I would tell her to share this with people, that it's like an angry couple. All they have to do is lie down on the ground and finish the conversation that way. Because the thing is, most arguments are just expression. They're just expression. It's as if one person in one room wants the other person to see their room, but actually we don't want people to see like us, or then they would be us, So technically we want people to walk with us in the co-creation of meaning. We don't want them to be our meaning or replace the meaning. This is why there's a kind of love where after some point I was like, all right, hold your horses. It's not that romantic. Like, the person, you see, it's like there's a romance that builds through time. That means there is a sort of love where you can say it's like an instant signal. The man's walking down the street, he sees the girl of his dreams, and bah, like bingo, like like a signal goes off. A signal, like a wave, like a force field just hits the person. But then there is the love of victory. That love is different. I have friends who I am friends with them just in the simplicity of things. And then I have complex friends. Friends who I am comfortable being complex around. Because this life is more than us. So the point of it is really not human beings. The whole point of it is build an advanced civilization so we can look at something else. For how long can we even look at ourselves? That's why I created the term advancement beyond the language threshold. That's why that's the third phase of civilization 2.0. Because for how long can we be a story and a shape? What if the universe has plans that we cannot calculate? It's like you can have compassion, but if you have compassion, here's the thing. It's like there's nothing wrong with being gentle, peaceful, and having a sort of, you can walk in this life, you can run in this life, you can walk in it, or you can even not go anywhere. There's so many choices here in this life. My recommendation is find your tune, find your pace. Whoever you are listening, every DNA is different. Every DNA is like an instrument where it has to be tuned. Do you know? You gotta tune life to your DNA in your inner realms. And when that happens, the mind, body, soul, any sort of classification, it stops. That means the whole point of the hierarchy, I saw Jordan Peterson speak about a lot about hierarchical systems, but one thing I didn't hear him say was that the hierarchy simultaneously is being witnessed from one point. Do you see? I am the life in this moment, the attention is the common denominator of everything that attention has identified. That means when I wonder about what I have in common with who I was 10 years ago and who I am now, I see it's my attention. I was a content of my own existence, of my own experience. I was existing to my own experience, you know? And that changed, but the experiencer didn't. The experiencer for me is like a lightsaber. You can't really touch it, but it has force, you know? In Persian mythology, there is the idea of the phoenix, and the phoenix was a creature that was a symbol of wisdom. Why? Wisdom, not intellect. It wasn't a creature as a symbol of like intelligence, of calculation. It wasn't a creature with a sophisticated brain because the phoenix resurrects. And so imagine a phoenix that has endured through 3 apocalypses, how many resurrections? That's why they say the phoenix was the creature of wisdom, because experience had become the teacher of the eyes. You know what this life is like? It's like we've gone to the Louvre in France, and, and we're looking at the artwork of Mona Lisa, and imagine we're just looking at her like her, I don't know, lips or something. Like we're just looking at like we are seeing, let us say for example, one corner of the painting, and we're thinking that corner is everything. That means imagine you saw the Mona Lisa, but you could only see like a part of her face. Do you know? And it's like it's like a picture that you haven't seen completely, trying to justify. So for me, facts are just temporary models. Even facts change. Do you know? Albert Einstein brought space time. That changed the view that just objects have gravitation, are just pulling things to themselves. The more dimensions that are added to a system, the more ways it can move. So we can say the point of knowledge is experiential accumulation. Because experience gets etched in your long term memory, but indirect subjective experience doesn't. Unless you're very sensitive to your inner realms, and your inner realms have an influence on your psychology, just like how epigenetics, how society has an influence on your psychology. It's like something from outside of you is suggesting the type of container you can be. Because just like how we accept the alphabet, we're accepting many symbols. What knowledge is language. What language is an intricate system and a very unique thing that evolution has done, where an object has become a subject to itself, and after becoming a subject to itself, has found a way to correlate sound, symbol, and form. Sound, symbol, and the object. That means I look at a tree, I can say the word tree, and the word tree exists. So you see, it's as if every phenomena branches out in dimensions of possibility, because if we see any system to be entropic, or if the system has a changing factor, if you're alive, it's like life. Sometimes I wonder, how do I look like? And I realize I never know. Isn't this strange? I mean, yes, the person can look in the mirror, but we're changing all the time. You know, so the person doesn't know if they were, if like, when I think about myself, I think that's the healthiest thing. I think we were blessed to actually, for there was a time, it was a mystery where I'm like, why do we have a first person view? Why aren't our eyes above our head? Like, why aren't our eyes like a third person kind of like video game? Why aren't we seeing ourselves from above our heads? Why is our attention in our head, right in our, like, emerging from our face? You know, why is our consciousness like, like Cyclops from the X-Men? It's just like beaming out of our eyes. It's like a light beam enters your eyes, and guess what? A conscious viewer, it steps out, reflects out. I will tell you, in the Vedic path, they say power is not the point. Those who seek power, you have found a nice hamster wheel, but you have just found a hamster wheel. The reason a person needs power is because they feel they're powerless. That is it. That is the simplicity of why there has been so many dictators on this planet in history. They were children who were not allowed and found a way to authorize the taking in their inner realms. And it's not good. Because here's the thing, people shouldn't want the outer realms to be exactly like their inner realms. There is a reason they arise separately. There is a reason we have the word object, and we have the word subject, and we have the word void. There is a space between every sound, every form, and every image. We are geometry personalized for a little while. And what does power mean? Because I think about it. I think about so many human beings that are going to come and enter this world, and some of them are going to be passive, and some of them are going to be assertive. And so those who are assertive are going to grab the wheel first, but those who are passive are going to access wisdom. That means it's like the same with the psychology of twins. That one of the twins tends to move first. Be more one twin identifies with passivity, the one twin identifies with assertiveness. What does that mean? That means imagine two children, person A and child A and child B, these two twins, and imagine twin A. I'm a twin, so I can speak about this, guys. Twin A, let's say, does things first. Twin B watches. Twin B actually has the mind developed first. Twin A has the body developed first. Not the body. What I mean by is like your wisdom, intelligence, everything has to do with where your attention is. That means like if your attention is on an orchard, then you can say it's like wisdom is blossoming. But if your attention is not on somewhere else, then it's like you're left to where your attention is. So honestly, on one level, what is wisdom is trying to comprehend what do we do with this attention that everything's happening in. The yogi that would use their powers had missed the train of clarity. And when I say use their powers, that means as a thought, because it gets a different weight. That means it's like if I consider like in a non-dual state, like someone comes and talks to you, there's an issue. But in a dual state, that means the moment the person declares a shape of themselves, then they're trying to keep that shape. If some force from outside of their experience comes to change that shape, then there's a sort of, I don't want to say repercussion, but it's as if it's the game of balance. It's as if two surfers on the same wave, their surfboards have come near each other. So it's as if one of them has to push the other away, or they both lose their meaning. Sometimes you got to let go of people because it's because you deserve it, you know. But there's times that your heart can't let go, It's like for me, we haven't realized that the species, this concept of a family is archaic. The notion of family is nature. That means the person can see their family be limited to just, a certain biological lineage, or they could think their whole family is their species, or they could feel like they're in a moment of attention, and everything in their moment is like familiar to how the attention is being. Because here's the thing, because we want stories, we think we have to do something in this world. not realizing that being is how things are done. That behind your eyes, you must see yourself being able to grab the cup from the cupboard before you can pour water in it. So that means the authorization comes from your inner realms, and there's no, you can say like there's a lot of lingering on the past. I've managed to stop that for myself when I realized the future deserved more attention. And the New Age community, which is bringing everything to the here and now, there's nothing wrong with that. But when you come to the here and now, you're going to notice something fascinating. You can do anything. That freedom, if there is, if freedom is not a myth, then it exists. It's here. It has to be only realized. You know, it's like the person has to build something, but they don't feel like building it. And then they just get the hammer in their hand and they have the nail in the other hand to, like, let's say, build a desk or something. And the person's like, all right, let me see how I could do this. And suddenly the person imagines they are Thor. Sometimes a lot of things that I personally like don't have the preference or like I don't like to do, the way I when I go to do it though, I make it challenging. I make it as if um, my future self is watching how I create its memory. The ancient Greeks had a remarkable phrase, a statement. They would say, to tame the savageness of man and make gentle the life of this world. That is the only aim. That we have to, like, the greatest progress we can make is to have the animal's jaws just its grip loosen. That everything breaks. And if we are breaking while we are not broken yet, then it's as if we have forgotten the world. If we have forgotten we're in the world. The moment you become, let me tell you, there's a level of violence where it's like you touched, like gum got. Here's the thing: our actions, if they are immoral to the inner nature, they will feel like gum on the shoe. That means you might not believe there's certain moments where certain events have happened, and I've just stepped out of that event, closed my eyes, and had like a private, I would say, heart sermon. Listen to the sermon of my heart of hearts. There is something in nature that wants without knowing. And man is in the unique position to implement reason. This was all of what was his name? Kierkegaard, Soren Soren Kierkegaard. His work was about, like, this man was a religious person, but he also saw how the whole everything man was depending on religion to satisfy was moving towards reason. He was one of those rare philosophers who he had somehow found in his eyes a theology standing side by side by physics. What that means is that on some level we are naming the atom. So what is rational about naming stuff? If this question can be answered, we will make we will be able to have the greatest insight in reason. That our reasons depend on the variables that are added to the moment. And if variables can be added to the moment, what does man know? You know, what if we're all like, oh no, we're doomed, and suddenly, like in like 10 years from now, it's extremely enlightened, peaceful, and advanced alien civilization from the Andromeda galaxy. Imagine, playfully I'm saying this, imagine they come down and they're like, all right, human beings, don't worry about it. We got you. It's all good. And suddenly we realize all technologies, there was in one instant world peace because man had found an event that surpassed the suffering of his past. Now, this doesn't mean that truth is something that is conditional, because most people feel that way. There's certain yogis that their perspective is, if you don't do the right thing, it doesn't matter what you do. As long as you don't do the right thing, the right result won't happen. To use power means to forget that this world is a station. It's literally like a subway station, one subway station. And there are people who don't take themselves seriously, but very seriously take the world. And there are people who don't take the world seriously. They're like, who cares about the world? The planet's been here, it's not like the planet can die, you know. And their self is glorified. But I'm telling you, there is no glory to a changing self aside from efficiency. There is no greater feeling when you realize dishonor doesn't need to be an option. Because I'm telling you, in this life, you cannot dishonor another without dishonoring the self, and you cannot dishonor yourself without, in the background of your mind, having less respect for the world. That means if a person, usually this is suggests how a person is rude. That there was the sage, I think it was Ibn Sina. They asked them, "Hey man, how are you so polite?" And he's like, "I learned from rude people. What can I say?" So it's like that. It's like, why are we being more inclined towards a multidimensional metaphysical culture? Because we learned from the opposite. There's many battles that the human being has won, and there's many battles that has lost, you know? And these battles, their results were technologies entering the system and remaining in the system, and technologies leaving, just like how people die. Trust me, technologies die too. Imagine we forgot how to build airplanes. That's like an idea of a technology being lost. So imagine in history how many technologies have been lost. Do you know there was way more than one way to fly back in the day? It was just that when the Wright brothers progressed further than the rest, the others dropped their methods. So that is the risk of effort. The wise man has realized that wisdom has to see emptiness first before it can care for what's in the system. That means the person who has not really noticed mortality, the person who feels immortal, you will one day see what kind of brush was in your hand and what did you do with it. You see, the point of life is not renouncing it and watching it from a distance. The point of being here is to live. Literally, the meaning of life is to live. If you just hover, there's no living. Your attention has to. It's like you need a direction. It's like a person in a car just wasting gas. Just driving everywhere. But imagine you woke up from the beginning of the day and you knew there were certain destinations, certain uh, levels of access you wanted to attain. Because what really thinking ends up being is parallel. It's literally you looking at different potential landscapes. The thing about the past is it's very easy. We don't have to visualize much about it. We're like, all right, we know what happened in one way and it's past. But the future hasn't happened, so the present has has an opportunity to look at its past to see meaning. It's as if the creature is walking in its own shoes, but those shoes are from past selves. And the cool thing is, the future self doesn't have shoes. Our future self is not an individual being. This is why there's this notion that it's not that man found another dimension. Man evolved into another dimension. Trust me, if we have the notion of people travel, imagine like suddenly the species sees, imagine there's an apocalypse, okay? And suddenly like we find a way to go to into another dimension. Some person finds a way to make a portal into another dimension, or we find a way to go inside a black hole. Or I would not say black hole, but I would say like imagine we're on Earth It's like the planet is about to, everything's about to, be erased, and suddenly we find an exit into the unknown. So it becomes the question of either staring at the known end or moving towards the unknown beginning. And very few beings, after they fly beyond their outer realms in this lifetime, if they cannot hear the voice that has no mouth, the unknown exit will be more alluring than the known ending. Because for me in this life, it's kind of like, all right, life, you've brought me here. Now it's gonna, you've designed me to be a creature that's going to break at some point. Okay, so if that's the case, what is the most efficient tactic? What is the strategy of a temporal being in a space-time continuum where we don't even know if the superior dimensions move beyond the limits of our language? And they do. That's my school of thought. I live a very minimalistic life, but the advancement of the civilization is there behind my eyes. There's moments where I drive where I think about what if the car didn't have wheels and it was hovering? Like there would be no air. So imagine first, like the way Elon Musk came and saw, for example, there was, what do you call it? Because let me tell you, the issue with cars is the noise they make. I know that the Tesla car is quiet, but a car with no wheels will be ultimately quiet. So the evolution we need to see in automation is probably magnetic roads or something. I don't know. Probably going to work would be like going on a river. Like imagine we create a system where the road is like a river and the car is like a canoe. This way, many things won't. There wouldn't be the automation of the road would be like the intelligence of the river already going. And I don't know. Here's the thing. It's like you either build the context smart and then go after the concept, or you allow the concept to be smart and go after the context. That means it's as if, like, imagine person A is in the park, person B comes and says, "You're a fool." And person A says, "Okay, how? In what way am I a fool?" And the person says, "In this way." And the person says, "In what way of that way?" And eventually it reverse engineers back to how a person saw an unfamiliar, and the way they decided to communicate with it was to throw something at it. Things that we don't understand, it's much easier to be rude to. People you don't know, it's very easy to get angry at. Have you noticed? But people you know, you hold yourself, you practice restraint. Sometimes. I definitely know people who, it's very interesting. It's as if I've been talking to the person, suddenly it feels as if the person is in a different room. It's as if there was no need to talk about an advanced civilization because the attention is not on the human being. And those who want to escape this room, how do you get out of the escape room? You follow the clues until you find a way where you can trust your exit. You see, we have had an ability to be born. I feel I had the natural strength to be born. So it was naturally, there was the ability there. So it most likely the moment the transition comes out of this realm, it's going to be as natural as the beginning. How could the end, if the beginning had a natural cause, how could the ending be an unnatural tragedy? The tragedy is the unnatural idea that we think nature can't see itself. There's a poem by Rumi, sorry, by Hafiz. It says, "We should talk about this problem." That's the name of the poem. Keep in mind, this guy wrote this 700 years ago. Hafez, this mystic, says there is a beautiful creature living in a hole you have dug. So at night I set fruit and grains, and little pots of wine and milk beside your soft earthen mounds, and I often sing, but still, my dear, you do not come out. I have fallen in love with someone who hides inside you. We should talk about this problem, otherwise I will never leave you alone. What he means is that I see parallels to exactly this poem as what Buddha said, that they asked the Buddha, is there going to be another Buddha? And the Buddha's like, no, Buddhism would have been spread to such a degree where there doesn't need to be. Everybody has reached that signal. So Hafiz, where he says, I have fallen in love with someone who hides inside you, he doesn't mean it like he's fallen in love with his image of something. He has fallen in love with this noticing. The mystics would notice non-duality very instantly. So in a non-dual state, there is no you and other, there is just a moment being. Doesn't get more non-dual than that, folks, you know? A moment just being, you know? Everybody seeks enlightenment, not realizing it's in an instant where the light in your eyes has meaning. So the parallels is that if Buddhism has spread, Hafiz can leave this person alone. What he means, I have fallen in love with someone who hides inside you. That means sometimes, you know, I feel we don't, even if the idea of love is taken, it's not that you just fall in love with something that's just there. It's like you're falling in love with something that can be. And if you can say people don't care about their past, they don't care about their present. If you don't care about your present, the future doesn't even exist for you. You have missed the point of life. That this is not a world necessarily for suffering and joy. This planet is a workstation where love allows for the greatest work and hate is the denial. There's certain moments where, did you know that beings can be pushed off rhythms? That means think of the concept of luck or not being lucky as rhythms. Even though those are just, those are just an axis, but I'm telling you, think of it as rhythms. Think of it as applications that are open. So sometimes an application can suddenly close. Sometimes if you do something in this life that you feel is so wrong, you know what happens? The intelligence punishes itself. When you don't listen to your own nature, the person feels they hurt themselves. So I can tell you, you can have an incredibly intelligent person do a non-intelligent action and feel so ashamed that they will lock down their intelligence. They will go into many moments of life where life is telling them, play the violin, you master violinist. But the person will just stare at the violin as if feeling his hands don't deserve to hold it. But guess what? Existence deserves everything it can envision. If you can envision it, you can do it. To some degree, at least. It's all about realizing that it is okay to roar, but not dishonestly, because there is no point of creating illusions in an illusion. This is why the idea of honesty makes sense. Why? Because we feel the world is a lie. When the world becomes a lie, you care about truth. But when you lie, then you have, in some sense, denied your own breath in the body you really deserve, the true nature you are. That means more important than language is life sensitivity. For me, you can have someone with a wall of endless degrees, and you can have a villager, a person who's never even stepped into, has never seen a book even. Let's say they were just a farmer's, child or something. Or let's say an old farmer. You would see that if you had an old farmer and you had a very esteemed scholar with certificates everywhere, you know, like literally they didn't need to get wallpaper for the walls of their house because the person had so many certificates. It was like their whole house was just certificates. They're like, where did you get this wallpaper from? The person's going to be like, it took me years in med school to be able to get this wallpaper. You know, it's hilarious. It takes us a lifetime to realize we have a lifetime. That villager, compared to that esteemed scholar, imagine there was someone who fell in front of him. Let's say, okay, here, imagine you have a man in a suit with you know, very very high ego, kind of high caliber, very like a person with his high aim, like let's say a sort of um, expanded ego. And then you have this village farmer who's a simple man. They're both at the bus stop. Now imagine there's a lady walking by. She has a basket of apples, and in some sense, the basket falls and the apples fall on the ground. You will see that the farmer instantly goes and picks up the apples, but the person who is in a glorified special state of their own certainty, he says, why do I need to go down to the level of the inferior? You see, when we forget that we are humans, ideas rule our lives. That means violence is a sign of ideological possession. The person who is being cruel can't discriminate. Holy shit, this isn't a virtual reality. This is actually life, you know? Life sensitivity is the key. If whoever you are, if you're a parent, that's one thing you got to teach your kid. You got to be like, son, we used to be savage animals that would kill each other with giant pieces of metal, you know. But now it's very important that we realize the gentleness of the species is its advancement. We don't want to advance like animals because there's a high chance that we will burn our own libraries. This is why the higher dimensions require a mind that feels it is not burdened by a body. When the body becomes a tool for the mind, the soul begins its real work on this earth. Or sorry, let me see if I can rephrase the structure of that sentence. I would say when the body realizes it's the soul, the mind's work has already been done. You know, we think that it has to be a physical action. What if the whole point of life is to just look at it in a certain way, and you just looked at it in a certain way, and it was like achievement unlocked. You know, like in this world, the gentle will be able to see beyond their animal instincts, its greater blueprint. And that's the thing. There's one thing I feel like my soul's been running towards for a while. And it's this thing that we just want to create a self-sustaining advanced civilization. You know what time feels like? it feels like a slow descension into the void. And it's strange because when I go to sleep, I don't fear death or non-existence or anything. It's just like, all right, time to go to sleep. But then when I wake up, there is the fear of the discontinuity of the system. And so it's as if our intelligence has graced the world, and if it's graceful, the world will grace it back. You see, just because we have had chaotic kings doesn't mean a compassionate royalty doesn't exist in the background. Sorry, guys, I needed a moment for the oceans underneath my eyelids to dry. Life is here's the cool thing. You start off as an individual object, which is trying to look for the perfect subject. Then you realize your whole life you have been a subject, and in your inner realms, you have actually been a creature of attention before a creature of language and form. That it's as if the only way you know you're in form is because you're formlessly noticing it. That means you can give a shape to the body, but what shape can you give your mind? I'm not talking about the brain. I'm saying, what shape can you give free will? Does free will have a factual shape? Does free will have a face? Or is free will the ability to face anywhere? I want to share with the audience this science fiction work that this science fiction story I've recently been working on. And I thought this was going to be one of the most revolutionary stories. I saw this idea that in the future, if there was an alien species that was smart and wanted to invade the Earth, they would, just like how, there's like those paper towels, or there's just a towel. Just think of a towel, imagine. It was as if this alien civilization that wanted to invade the planet was not invading physically. They had thrown these giant blankets in our oceans that were sucking up the water of our ocean, so we could not use, you know? And it was a situation I saw, like I saw it in my inner realms in the sci-fi work, that it was as if it was like as the water was going away, humanity required a strategy, not a violent strategy, but a strategy of the ingenuity of design. That means it's like it's like an alien story that the aliens don't and the human beings are not fighting with weapons; they're fighting as intelligent minds. Because they're warriors who fight in areas where there could be disturbance to others, and then there's very high level warriors who they want, when they really want to truly bring out their skill, they do it where it disturbs no one. If we want power for the body, then immaterial perspectives are not really necessary. Go be a muscle your whole life. Or the person can realize that there is the faculty of mind, that we can process information after the biological organism processes it. So it's as if two levels of processing. There's the sensory perception entering your eyes. Literally, your eyes are processing the light entering them, you know? And then the nerves, and then there is, it's like a rise and fall of civilizations behind our eyes. That's what the future and the past is. The future is how we stand up, and the past is how we sat down. Or, sorry, not how we sat down, how we were seated. This would be a sign of an advanced civilization where people are forgiving, not because of good karmic reward, but because they feel everybody deserves an advanced civilization. When we realize that language is geometry, there will be a revolution in human psychology. I feel if we can ignite, set into motion a geometrical language, I think then I would be like, all right, now I can, whatever can happen in life, and I don't have to put an effort too much. There's something, it's as if like right now, we can't build an advanced civilization, but we can build the backup system for it. It's like first you build the backup system, so if you have to back up, there's somewhere you can be. It's like literally the general had the general's tent, and then there was the battlefield, a totally separate location. So sometimes when I think about things, I'm not in the event, I'm outside of the event thinking about the event. I don't know who drew this wallpaper, but it's incredible. Whoever knows the artist, please share. This picture shows this is ideological possession. What's going on in this picture is that a thought is feeling its greater body. I think we grew out of, we evolved out of the concept of royalty too early. Because imagine as if like it's all a game of archetypes. It's a game of images. It's as if this person standing on the podium, that's the image of that moment. That's how the game of the manifestation of that moment is being projected into meaning. For me, the situation is, it's pretty much the strategy I'm implementing. At least I don't see a morality to it in regards to if it's right or wrong, but I see a neo-morality in regards to efficiency and inefficiency. That really what we can do is make the light, the clarity of civilization, just add to the archive. That's it. That means if here's the thing, this is my strategy towards anything that I am, the odds are against me. When I see that the odds are against me, I first instantly notice how. I look at the design. When I notice the design, now my mind fathoms, amplifies the chaos. So imagine there's a problem, right? Imagine like right now, what's a good example? Let's say this computer. Okay, this is going to be a hilariously intense example, but imagine. Okay, imagine something breaks down. All right, imagine like your computer breaks down. Now, imagine you're in a situation where you have to fix it. Okay, no one can fix it for you. All right. So you've seen a problem. Now, the way I'm saying, Mr. Within suggesting that you can solve problems is now you see this broken computer and you're like, oh man, I don't know how to fix this. Now, I'm just going to tell you the progression of how I feel the thinking should go from there. The person looks at the problem. Oh, I got to fix this. The person sees the problem as if it was 10 times worse. What kind of actual realistic energy would you need to solve a problem 10 times worse? If you can muster up that effort and solve the problem, do you know what I'm telling you is instead of trying to be one step ahead, attempt as far as you can, and wherever you fall short will be way more further than just being one step ahead. That means it's like in the void, who said you got to be only one step ahead? That means that's the thing. That's the secret to handling the objective realm, that the mind can command it to some degree. Not in an authoritarian way where like we have become the dictators of elemental atoms, like the atoms have to do what we tell it. the elements of the realm. It's like, I'm not saying we are airbender dictators, you know, we're like a dictator, we're bending the air, you know? You see, we see this archetype, this theme in many films where the good has an innocence that makes it win in the long term, but the bad has a power that makes it win in the short term. And so, if the innocence of the good endures, the bad cannot touch it. There's this Japanese show that I think everybody should watch. Let me see the gentleman's name. Hayao Miyazaki from Studio Ghibli. There's this show called Spirited Away. And it's a very surreal thing where it's like the innocence of the main character is her power. That the character, regardless of the complexity and the chaos, the character goes in, the simplicity hasn't gone anywhere. Do you know? That means children don't know enough to suffer. What I mean by that is ideologically. There is of course hardship in life, but I'm saying it doesn't come off as a story. For me, the same way I learned the alphabet, there was the secret of knowledge that meaning is an extraction process. It's literally like the known like a chemical and the unknown like a chemical, and there being a chemical reaction that we're like, is it known? Is it unknown? We don't know. You know? So it's like we're on a dragon's back and we don't know where the dragon is going. And if imagine a dragon flying in outer space. Life is on some level a story that we get to see only one side of the coin, the more minds there are in the room. And now there's 8 billion minds in the room. Now these minds have become ideologically in the linguistic situation tribal. That means like nationalism is literally, I don't see ourselves having evolved from those primitive tribes, you know, that had spears and bows. Honestly, I don't see ourselves any different. We have the same tribal dynamic, but we have it just in a more sophisticated imagery. We haven't realized that the species, the calling of the species yet. The calling of the species is the advanced civilization. And I'm just sharing my model. In my opinion, every person, like any problem in life, every person can share input. And if we have built an efficient network, imagine right now in academia, they're studying known phenomena. They're taking that which can be that is instantly linked with the objective as serious. But if we begin taking the invisible seriously, it will be a moment where we're wondering, what are we, the visible, or are we just in it? Charles says, since choice is cause. Since choice is cause. Choice is the cause for choice, but here's the thing. It's like there's this thing they say that it's like, do we have a choice? It's like they ask someone, do you have free will? He's like, do I have a choice? You know, do I have a choice? So that means technically choice is not the cause if you had a choice to have a choice or not. Do you know? What I'm saying is that cause and effect are, we're branding the moment like a cow. We're branding energy like a cow, like, you know what I mean? And we're saying, all right, this is cause, that's effect. Like, it's savage, it's primitive to some degree. How simply we language covers the world, and we don't realize it is our mind dressed in the meaning. So anyways, guys, I feel I've painted the pictures I wanted for this talk. I guess one last thing I would say is a resolution means a moment where the species, I could say, is getting ready for the implementation of a strategy. You see, in your life, whatever you do, even if you're a person who do nothing, the mind is accumulating information. Eventually, it will propose a strategy. And if the person is not conscious and they don't trust their instincts, which is how their mind is trying to live a life. So guys, let me just write this actually. So I've written something, guys, in the chat section. I'm just going to read it for archival reasons, local archival reasons. So I've written, so Charles has said half a choice, question mark, and I've said, consider the notion of unconditional freedom, a freedom that cannot be defined by any condition in a dynamic system. When we stop playing language games with the moment, we see the world as it beautifully was before names became blindfolds. So guys, I don't know why I'm typing so much. Maybe I should just read it. Maybe I should just say it. So Charles says, that sounds to me like freedom from freedom. And then I responded, no, it's the end of freedom. Because self and world are inseparable. It's an unknown event where we can see a small part of the painting through our biological optics. And then Charles says, how to have a world to view without a world view. Yeah, it's like the view is there. You're just owning a little part of it and thinking that that's everything. Let me tell you, you don't need to have a world view when there's a view of the world already. That's what I'm saying about the linguistic simulation. It's like a dream inside a dream. You don't need to dream when you're already in a dream. It's still all one dream. Javi says, from spear to bows to bullets and missiles, you would think by now we would stop the senseless killing over ideologies by now. Yeah, Javi, the thing is, in the chat section, like as I read your comment, I could tell you, here's the thing. There's a manner where you look at the civilization and you're like, gosh, you can't even hate it because it doesn't know better. But then you see there are those who know better and they can't do it, and still you can't hate them because hate usually leads to breaking things. Here's the thing. If eyes are open, what is there to fear? You know, if existence is breathing, you know, it's like there's no such thing as fear. It's just a coin flipping in the void and we're experiencing different sides of it. You know, it's like, for me, from a theological standpoint, it was very fascinating that we see in many religions the notion of God being forgiving and God being merciful. Yet we see that God couldn't forgive Adam and Eve. Do you see that? That it was as if there had to be the first mistake for the database and the duality to emerge. That means duality is God's creation. And it's very complex because the moment you even see a creator, you try to personify the universal mind, it's unfathomable. It's like we're cells inside a body, inside a vein, and trying to wonder why the person is going to work. It's like such a dimensional gap. If you have played the games of power, then perhaps it is time to abide by your inner realms. You know, there's a manner to living. I never finished the story, guys. Sorry, I started a story at the beginning of the talk. It was the story of the prince. Okay, let me just finish the story, just to finish that image. So, if you remember, I said there was a prince who was friends with the palace guard, and in the morning he went to see the palace guard, and a beggar came to him, and the beggar was like, give me something, and the prince was like, you don't know the value even for me to give it. Why should I give it? Something like that. Now the prince goes and is like, they're drinking tea with the palace guard, and it's like, you know, friends, like, you know, just catching up, and suddenly we see like the story, how it goes is that the sage comes, this sage that looks like some random like traveler, like, you know what I mean. The person looks like a beggar from the forest or something. The sage comes up, and suddenly the palace guard stands because he knows that's still the prince. So the palace guard guards the prince and says, "Who are you? Stop!" And the man is the sage from the forest who's just walking towards the gate where the prince is, and he looks at the prince and he says, "I know who you are." You know. And the prince looks around and says, "Don't ask me for money." You know, like the prince is getting angry. You know, and the sage. Oh, sorry, I messed up the story here. The prince, the sage says, "I am here to save you." And the prince starts laughing. "Save me? I'm the prince of this kingdom. I'm gonna be the future king." And the yogi looks at him, at a prince, at a future king, and says, "I am here to save you from yourself." For we are all creatures on a rock. It doesn't matter what's on our head or what's in it. life is a symphony, and those who are blessed can hear it. And if you hear it, the mind of the world has spoken before the mind of man could see anything. There's a knowing in this world that is unconditional. I've called it the inventor sphere. I've even read a book about it, but it's not up yet online. And the inventor sphere was, I had found a way to access, not a way, but I had written this book that was explaining that there was something known as the inventor sphere. This sphere, an actual like giant sphere, where all design and geometry was being poured from, was being broadcasted from. So it's as if we may think right now, we are we are sculpted by the hands of nature. But think of nature as being the clay, and the signals are sculpting man. So I wouldn't be surprised if the way beings are living in another galaxy on a planet could be influencing us. And really, there is no power in a temper. It's like, what power does a candle want? The only thing you can do is, if you have power, you can share it. Because we're all like candles, so the only thing you can do is just share the light. What else can you do? Hold on to the inner realms. Everything changes in life. When the thought arose to me in 2014 to give 10,000 talks, I was like, what am I going to say? Like, I'm seriously, I was thinking. Then I realized, if I had just tried and decided to say the same thing every day, it would be impossible for it to be the same thing, because I'm changing as a human being throughout the years. So you see, I noticed that the world is the source of all content. That if your eyes can see beyond yourself, you will notice why the term inventor sphere exists. So guys, let me share this notion. It's about pretty much the philosophical debate. And Charles, I hope you're listening to the chat section, because this is a response to your comment where you say infants' perception is unconditional. See, it's that the inner realm is unconditional because there is nothing, no reference point yet. Okay, so you can say a child's mind is like literally a microphone in an empty room, or like a recording camera in their old room. I feel like our psychology, we first become a subjective realm, then we become a subjective self in it. The world first becomes a subject, then we become also a subject in that, after the world has become a subject in it. If the mind and body are in separate dimensions, your free will has nothing to do with matter. If mind and body are inseparable to some degree, then you're limited to the matter. And if you're limited to the matter, then matter's voice can be extremely loud, so you can think there's only that matter. But why does matter matter to itself? That's the great question, not why matter is here only. Why is it significant? There's a quote from Frederick Nietzsche, I'm going to read for you, this German philosopher. And one of the most, he I would say was such a, even though people may not believe it, but I feel he was such a compassionate being, because he sent out a lot of messages in bottles to philosophers and future generations. He was literally a roaring mind before the light of the candle fades. You are alive once, and so is your moment. Think of it this way: every moment of your life is like a friend you're meeting. That means it's the mind of allegiance tends to have strength come to it. The honest, I mean, honestly, what can we say about honesty? The inner realms are different, the outer realms the same. If you stay true to the outer realms and to the human decency, there's an honesty factor, the word arises. And if you stay not true, if you dishonor your species, you bother it on its walk towards an advanced civilization, then it's as if the species will forgive you, because an advanced civilization doesn't hold on to the past as if it's dependent on it, right? We don't want just any kind of human species. We want the most advanced. We want the best product they have in the store of the most advanced civilization we can build. That means geometrically it must be fascinating, linguistically it must be fascinating, architecturally it must be fascinating. That let us see if 8 billion creatures on a rock in the middle of nowhere could literally like build a species, like literally how, it's as if everybody's a small robot, and it's like all these like species is like this giant robot which is made of all these smaller robots, you know. I think the best strategy is to have an inner realm project active and then move on to outer realm projects. So if the outer realm projects are pushed back, the inner realm project is still active. It's like engines. It's like a Venn diagram, I would say. The within and the without, the inner and the outer, the known and the unknown. That means it's like literally look at the yin yang symbol, but instead of seeing the color white and black, see the known and the unknown. That in the known universe, there's a small fragment of unknown. There's a small circle of the unknown. And in an unknown universe, there is the small circle of the known. So you know what I feel? It's so hilarious. I feel right now on the side of the coin we are like the white circle in a black universe, in a pitch black abyss cosmos. Do you see what I mean? Like the yin yangs. Okay, here, maybe some people don't know what the yin yang symbol is. If you honestly don't know what the yin yang symbol is, then you need more balance in your life. There we go. There isn't a better yin yang symbol than this, guys. Okay, no, actually, the picture's saying. Okay, so if you notice right beside this lady in the picture, there's a giant yin yang symbol just right beside her. This yin yang, this is the yin yang symbol, okay? So I'm saying, imagine now the side that's black is, or actually, guys, this is a better picture. Hold on. Oh my god. Never mind. So when you look at this yin yang symbol, so right now we are like, where is everybody? It's empty. We're in an unknown universe, and Earth is where life is. Imagine there's another side to the coin where all the planets are filled with species. No, it's just Earth is not inhabited. Another reverse symmetrical parallel reality. So what I mean by that is enlightenment is realizing chaos and order, and their multidimensional fragments are, and their multidimensional echoes are in the same circle. So enlightenment is realizing life is just one giant circle where chaos and order are dancing in the same room. Now, if we treat the unknown with a little bit of the known in it, that means technically there's nothing to fear. That means at the end of death, there's a little bit of life, and during life, there's a little bit of death. You know, because you can see this yin yang symbol as two circles, two complete universes, and it's just they're spinning around one another. That means the way I see this picture is that imagine the white and the imagine the black spinning. Imagine there was no white thing, and this was just like some metal. Uh, uh, like this was a metal ring, metal like disc, and imagine the disc was spinning. That's what I mean. A grand question: is time an objective phenomena or a subjective consideration of objective phenomena? I feel it's the archaic revival of the unknown. I feel that human beings thought the truth was in objects and subjects. Now they're noticing there's something else going on. That nature is living a life through us, and if we can notice it, then civilization, we are already in the advanced civilization. If we can care for the world in a way as if we're in it only once, then the honor will find you. That means it's like sometimes you gotta raise yourself from your absence of meaning. You don't know. There's been moments where I have shouted at meaninglessness. What I mean by that is that there has been no thought, and I just felt a bit lonely as a person, and I was for a second just trying to evoke the inner realms, you know. And then it was a situation where I was successful, but the feeling you get when you go after something and when something comes to you on its own is so different. That's the beauty of, I would say, natural mysticism. That it's as if it's a surprise. That if you actually look from eyes that don't are unconditional, it's as if like realize the unconditional self in the conditional world. I would like to go into a quote tunnel of this poet named Sadi. Sadi says, this Persian poet says, anger that has no limit causes terror, and unseasonable kindness does away with respect. Be not so severe as to cause disgust, nor so lenient as to make people presume. Sadi says the hand of liberty is stronger than the arm of power. What a great quote. That means freedom is like the white in the yin and the yang that could never die, you know. Sorry, it says the hand of liberality, but I think liberty sounded better. Sadi says the stranger has no friend unless it be a stranger. Sadi says joy and sorrow, beauty and deformity equally pass away. Sadi says two orders of mankind are the enemies of church and state, the king without clemency and the holy man without learning. Sadi says, I fear God, and next to God I mostly fear them that fear him not. That means, whether you see the word God or truth or just the intelligence of the realm, whatever. Sadi says, now that another is suffering pain at thy hand, trust not that thy heart shall be exempt from affliction. Sadi says, however much you study, you cannot know without action. A donkey laden with books is neither an intellectual nor a wise man. Empty of essence, what learning has he, whether upon him is firewood or book? Sadi says, now that another is suffering pain. Oh no, I read that. Sadi says, God gives sleep to the bad in order that the good may be undisturbed. Guys, this is the first time ever I have heard someone talk about the concept of sleep as if it's something given. Remarkable. Wow, we're given sleep. Sadi says, if thou art wise, incline to truth, for truth, not the semblance, remains in its place. Sadi says, he who learns and makes no use of his learning is a beast of burden with a load of books. Does the ass comprehend whether he carries on his back a library or a bundle of faggots? Sadi says, kings stand more in need of the company of the intelligent than the intelligent do of the society of kings. Yeah, because at least the person wants to see a smart king. Even though you see let's say, even though maybe the king is not a good king back in the day, imagine medieval times, but at least you would want to see a smart king. Do you know what I mean? That means it's like the king is cruel to its own people, but when the kingdom gets attacked, it's also that has the same intensity to the enemy. Kind of like how in the movie Godfather, like it was like this kind of crime family, but at the same time, the neighborhood was safe. Like it's something like so. It's like kind of paradox. Sadi says a friend whom you have been gaining during your whole life, You ought to not be displeased with in a moment. A stone is many years becoming a ruby. Take care that you do not destroy it in an instant against another stone. Sadi says people are crying up the rich and variegated plumage of the peacock, and he is himself blushing at the sight of his ugly feet. That means that's true. You know, it's, another way of saying this would be of this Facebook meme I saw, where it showed this person, uh, this person uh, in a helicopter. This person in a helicopter seeing someone in an airplane, you know, in their own private jet, and the person in their helicopter is like, I wish I had a private jet. Then at the same time in the meme, it showed there is a person who's, for example, is driving, is like, I don't know, what was it? There's someone in a car looking at the helicopter and being like, I wish I had a helicopter right now in this traffic jam. Then the person who's in the traffic, there's someone with a bicycle who's saying, I wish I had a, this is all the meme. This was all in one picture. The person's like, I wish I had a car, you know? Then, sorry, there's a person in a motorcycle that sees the car and says, I wish I had a car. Then there's a person in a bicycle that sees the motorcycle, the guy with the motorcycle, and says, I wish I had a motorcycle. Then there's a person on, this is all in the meme, the picture, the person is on a wheelchair who's like, I wish I had legs. Oh, sorry, there was a person, oh God, it was all going down in elevation, okay? So the whole picture was like it was going down. It went from the airplane to the helicopter, from the helicopter to the car, from the car to the motorcycle, from the motorcycle to the bicycle, from the bicycle to the person standing, then from the person standing to the person on the wheelchair. So all these levels of life each had something more perfect they wanted. So when Sadi says people are crying up the rich and variegated plumage of the peacock, and he is himself blushing at the sight of his ugly feet, that means it's as if like others see beauty, yet the person may see a flaw. You know, but for me, the inner realms is like, it's like you got to give freedom in the sense of not feeling like you know yourself too much, because life is changing. Knowledge is kind of like, it's more like a walk than like um, just carrying books. You know, it's something where it's like it needs to be implemented and somehow find meaning with the experiential. Sadi says the world is not a courtroom. There is no judge, jury, no plaintiff. This is a caravan filled with eccentric beings telling wondrous stories about God. Sadi says he who lives upon the fruit of his own labor escapes the contempt of haughty benefactors. Sadi says there's a difference between him who claspeth, between him who claspeth his mistress in his arms and him whose eyes are fixed on the door expecting her. Yeah, there's some moments in life where you gotta go towards things, and there's some moments in life where it's better when things come towards you. Sadi says, "Be not in the desire of thine own knees." Sadi says, "A lovely face is the solace of wounded hearts and the key of locked up gates." Wow, wow, this quote is definitely something that needs to echo. Sadi says, "Whoever has his foe at his mercy and does not kill him is his own enemy." Oh, Jesus Christ, this man's suddenly went savage. Sadi says, "Whatever is produced in haste goes hastily to waste." Sadi says the remedy against want is to moderate your desires. Sadi says, publish not men's secret faults, for by disgracing them you make yourself of no repute. And Sadi says, a little beauty is preferable to much wealth. That means after you have attained power, you're going to seek beauty. And beauty only is accessed when you are powerless, because it's a sort of reverence, it's a sort of fascination. It's like some things you can't be an animal and access. You got to be a human being. You got to be like actually a human being that notices the unknown dimension and potential of every living phenomenon. Sadi says it is better to break off 1,000 friendships than to endure the sight of a single enemy. Sadi says a man is insensible to the relish of prosperity until he has tasted adversity. Sadi says, O wise man, wash your hands of that friend who associates with your enemies. Yo, Sadi just went Machiavellian here. Sadi says the sons of Adam are formed from dust. If not humble as the dust, they fall short of being men. Sadi says holiness comes by holy deeds, not starving flesh of daily needs. Sadi says man is, beyond dispute, the most excellent of created beings, and the vilest animal is a dog, but the sages agree that a grateful dog is better than an ungrateful man. Wow. Sadi says every person thinks his own intellect perfect and his own child has. Of course, guys, because it's like you gotta honor the world if it doesn't know what honor is yet. We gotta pretty much honor ourself out of extinction. There's no. That means go towards a vision that becomes a new program of authorized energetic expression. This quote by Sadi is so epic. Every person thinks his own intellect perfect and his own child handsome. Oh man, yeah. Sadi says, I was about to say laddie. Sadi says, he who is indifferent to the suffering of others is a traitor to that which is truly human. Yeah, if you see humans suffering and nothing happens to you, it's like, what are you, a robot from the future? Like, it's like the human language is just heart speak it before the mind can rationalize. Sadi says, be not so severe as to cause shyness, nor so clement as to encourage boldness. Sadi says, poverty snatches the reins out of the hand of piety. Sadi says, when a mean wretch cannot vie with another in virtue, out of his wickedness he begins to slander. The abject envious wretch will slander the virtuous man when absent, but when brought face to face, his loquacious tongue becomes dumb. Sadi says the sea does not contain all the pearls, the earth does not enclose all the treasures, and the flintstone does not flintstone, not flintstones. And the flintstone does not enclose all the diamonds, since the head of man encloses wisdom. Yeah, because it's like, is the treasure outside, or is the treasure how your eyes are open? Sadi says a tree freshly rooted may be pulled up by one man on his own. Give it time and it will not be moved even with a crane. Sadi says the true disciple should aim to live for the gospel rather than to die for it. Wow, this quote is like, yeah, it's as if like, how could love be violent? It doesn't get more, paradoxical. Sadi says a peace-mingling falsehood is preferable to a mischief-stirring truth. Sadi says expose not the secret failings of mankind, otherwise you must verily bring scandal upon them and distrust upon yourself. Yeah, I mean, if you look at the failure, like it's as if like you put the GPS in the vehicle when you open your eyes in the morning. Sadi says no one can be so, the GPS address. No, but Sadi says no one can be so true to your secret as yourself. None can be so true to your secret as yourself. Sadi says, keep belly lightly loaded, if mind with wisdom see, for bodies cramped to bursting make empty souls to be. Rumi says, oh, sorry, not Rumi. Sadi says, when you see contention amongst your enemies, go and sit at ease with your friends. But when you see them of one mind, string your bow and place stones upon the ramparts. The mind is the advantage of no longer needing the sword. It is the most advanced technology that can be used in endless ways. Sadi says, pride thyself on what virtue thou hast, and none on thy parentage. Sadi says, he who learns and makes no use of his learning. I read this, oh my god. It's repeating the website. Sadi says, were the diver to think on the jaws of the shark, he would never lay hands on the precious pearl. Sadi says, the bird alighteth not on the spread net when it beholds another bird in the snare. Take warning by the misfortunes of others, that others may not take example from you. Sadi says, O God, I say not hear my prayers. I say, blot with forgiving pen my sins away. Wow. Wow. This dude is asking the creator of the universe to rewrite his life story, you know. Blot with forgiving pen my sins away. That means as if only truth can design the illusion. And there's a quote I want to read from Rumi. He says, protect yourself from your own thoughts. And this is actually from Rumi. Protect yourself from your own thoughts. You know, it's so important to protect yourself from your own thoughts, in the sense that not every thought needs a response. Not every stimulus needs a sort of engagement. You know, Rumi says here, the art of knowing is knowing what to ignore. That as air enters our lungs, the neurons have an ability to realign. We breathe in the world, and we breathe in the experience of the world, and we exhale. We breathe in the objective realm and exhale the subjective realm. Charles, let me tell you, Charles in the chat section, guys, says we can rewrite the past by learning something from it. The issue is sometimes you just have to move your attention from a design. That means if you find a better way to build something, there's no point of having your attention too much on the past. The most efficient strategy to the past is to realize it's past and just go forth. And if you trust the unknown, then the great work begins. So anyways, guys, thanks for listening. Um, I'll be in the Discord. Blessings.